Welcome to Dreamscribe, your companion on the journey to peaceful sleep. Before you drift off, don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps this calming community grow. Where in the world are you tuning in from? The sun dipped below the tree line, casting long, jagged shadows across the cracked asphalt of the winding road. The RV rumbled along, its tires humming against the pavement, but inside the cabin, tension crackled like static electricity. Nick adjusted his grip on the wheel, glancing at the GPS mounted on the dashboard. We were supposed to hit a main highway 20 minutes ago. Emma, seated beside him, tapped at her phone's screen in frustration. No service. Again. In the back, Jordan stretched with an exaggerated yawn. We're not lost. We're just temporarily misplaced. Ava, peering out the window, frowned. Guys, when was the last time we saw another car? Silence settled in. Leo leaned forward from his seat. She's right. No houses. No road signs. Just trees. Nick sighed, running a hand through his hair. Let's keep going. We'll hit something eventually. Silence filled the cabin. No one moved. Emma exhaled through gritted teeth. Please tell me we have gas. Nick checked the gauge again. We do. The engine just stopped. Leo grabbed a flashlight and reached for the door. I'll check under the hood. Wait. Ava snapped, her voice sharp. Leo turned, raising a brow. What? Ava's hand trembled as she pointed toward the tree line. There's something out there. The others followed her gaze. At first, nothing but darkness. But then, a pair of dull, metallic glints between the trees. Eyes. Reflecting back at them, Jordan swallowed hard. Well, what is that? The glints blinked. A low, grinding noise rumbled through the trees, like metal being scraped against stone. The trees shuddered. Something moved. And then, as quickly as it appeared, the glints vanished. The RV is dead. The road ahead is narrowing. And something big is watching them from the trees. This sets up, too. Setting the scene, building atmosphere. Let me know if you'd like refinements before we continue. But the road ahead only seemed to get narrower. As they rounded a bend, the RV lurched violently, the tires skidding against loose gravel. Nick swore, gripping the wheel as the vehicle veered off the road, bumping onto a dirt path barely wide enough for the RV to pass. Emma grabbed the dashboard. Nick, what the hell was that? He exhaled sharply, trying to steady his breathing. Something was in the road. I had to swerve. Ava's voice was tense. Something? Like a deer? Nick shook his head. Bigger. Jordan smirked. Great. We almost got taken out by Bigfoot. But no one laughed. Leo craned his neck toward the road behind them. No movement. No sign of anything at all. I didn't see anything, Emma muttered. Are you sure? Nick didn't respond, because the truth was he wasn't sure. He had only caught a glimpse, a hulking shadow darting across the road, too fast and too large to be human. The dirt road stretched on endlessly, weaving between dense clusters of trees. The farther they drove, the thicker the forest became, the branches overhead tangling like grasping fingers. Emma tapped the fuel gauge. We're at a quarter tank. We need to turn around. Nick nodded. If I can find a place wide enough. Ava pulled out her phone, holding it up near the window. Still no signal. This doesn't make sense. We weren't that far off the highway. Jordan leaned back with a sigh. Relax. Worst case, we camp out and leave in the morning. It's not like we're stranded. That's when the RV sputtered. Nick's stomach dropped. No. Not now. The engine coughed once, twice, then died completely. The RV rolled to a stop in the middle of the road. A heavy stillness settled over the RV, pressing down on them like the weight of the thick, humid air. The headlights cast long, wavering beams into the darkness, barely illuminating the road ahead. Shadows stretched unnaturally, flickering like silent specters between the trees. The forest loomed around them, dense and unforgivingly silent. No wind, no rustling leaves, not even the chirp of insects. Just an oppressive emptiness. Nick drummed his fingers against the wheel, his eyes darting toward the rearview mirror. The glinting eyes from the tree line were gone, but his instincts screamed that they were still being watched. Just beyond the reach of the light. Emma exhaled sharply. This place feels wrong. Jordan snorted. Yeah, because our fearless leader drove us into a horror movie. Leo ignored him, shining the flashlight through the windshield. The dirt road ahead was narrow, lined with jagged rocks and deep tire grooves, but no signs of recent traffic. Ava hugged her arms to her chest. I don't think we should stay here. Nick turned the key again. The engine sputtered, but refused to turn over. Silence. A low grinding sound, like metal scraping against metal, echoed from the woods. "We need to figure out where we are," Leo said, pulling out his phone. "Maybe there's a town nearby." He lifted the screen. No signal. Frowning, he tried switching apps. The GPS was frozen, the little blue dot hovering over a blank, nameless expanse. "That's not normal," Ava murmured. Jordan waved his own phone in the air. "Nothing here either. It's like this place doesn't exist." Emma checked her watch, then frowned. The time hadn't changed in the last 15 minutes. Nick tapped the dashboard clock. It was frozen too. A thick wave of unease swept through the RV. "Okay, that's officially creepy," Jordan muttered. Nick exhaled, trying to keep a level head. "All right, we're not getting anywhere panicking. Leo, check the engine again. Emma, see if you can get a better reading on the GPS." Leo nodded, grabbing the flashlight. He hesitated at the door. The darkness outside seemed deeper now. He shook off the feeling and stepped down onto the dirt. The air was thick with the smell of rust and damp earth. "See anything?" Nick called. Leo knelt by the hood, lifting it slowly. Something had scratched deep grooves into the metal. "What the hell?" he whispered. The scratches weren't random. They were deliberate. Clawed. From the woods, the low grinding noise returned, closer this time. Inside the RV, Ava's breath hitched. "Guys, the trees are different." Emma turned to her. "What do you mean?" Ava pointed out the window. "They're closer. I swear they weren't this close before." Nick turned to check, his pulse spiking. She was right. The trees that had been a few yards from the road now loomed just outside the RV, their twisted branches casting long, skeletal shadows against the windows. Jordan scoffed, but there was an edge to his voice. "You're messing with us. Trees don't move." Leo, still outside, felt the ground beneath him shift slightly, as if something deep below the earth was stirring. The air grew heavier, electric. The flashlight flickered. A shadow slid between the trees. Leo's breath turned shallow. "I think we're being hunted." Inside, Ava grabbed Nick's arm. "We have to go. Right now." "The engine won't start." Nick snapped, his frustration mounting. "What do you want me to do?" "Push the damn thing." Emma looked at Leo through the windshield. "Leo, get back in the—" A loud, guttural scraping sound tore through the silence. Something huge moved just beyond the tree line. Jordan flinched. "Tell me you heard that." Ava pressed herself against the seat. "Oh, we heard it." Leo took a slow step back toward the RV. The flashlight flickered again, then died completely. Darkness swallowed everything. A deep, metallic growl echoed from the trees. Something was coming. The forest is closing in. Something unnatural is hunting them. And with no working engine, their only option is to survive. The oppressive silence outside stretched into an eternity. Every breath, every movement inside the RV felt too loud, as if the darkness itself were listening. Nick tightened his grip on the wheel, his knuckles white. Nobody moves. Nobody makes a sound. Ava, pressed against the seat, barely nodded. Her eyes darted toward the window, toward the impossibly still trees. The headlights flickered slightly, casting shadows that seemed to pulse and shift. Like something was breathing, just beyond their reach. Leo reached for the door handle. "We can't just sit here. We need to." A metallic shriek cut through the air. The sound was wrong, like 1,000 rusted gears grinding against each other. It echoed through the forest, bouncing off the trees, coming from every direction at once. Emma flinched, covering her ears. "What the hell is that?" Leo whipped around, his flashlight useless against the dark. "It's circling us." The RV lurched violently to the side. The tires groaned against the dirt. "It's pushing us," Jordan shouted. "It's trying to tip us over." Nick stomped on the gas. The engine roared, and then choked. The grinding noise grew louder, closer. The metal frame of the RV groaned as something scraped against it. Ava whimpered. "It's testing us." Another shriek, closer this time, followed by a slow, deliberate dragging sound along the roof. Something was up there. Emma grabbed her phone, turning on the camera. "If I can't see it out there, maybe I can catch it on my screen." She held it up to the window and froze. "Oh my God!" The camera showed what the naked eye couldn't. A massive shape loomed just beyond the trees. Its twisted, metallic limbs gleamed under the dim light. Its head was fused with rusted machinery, jaws lined with jagged, broken metal. It wasn't just hunting them. It was waiting. Leo grabbed a wrench from the toolbox. "We can't stay in here. It'll rip us apart piece by piece." Nick's mind raced. "The road, it brought us here. Maybe if we get out on foot, we can—" Jordan cut him off. "And run where?" Into the trees? Into that thing. A sickening thud echoed through the roof. Something heavy had landed on top of them. The RV sank slightly, metal groaning under the weight. It's on the roof! Ava shrieked. The ceiling buckled inward, the thin metal warping like aluminum foil. Nick's hands shook as he yanked open a drawer, pulling out road flares. We have to make a distraction. We need to blind it. Emma's voice wavered. And if that doesn't work? Nick swallowed hard. Then we run. Outside, the grinding noise stopped. The silence stretched thin. And then, a single claw, long and rusted, pierced through the roof. The beast was inside. The creature is no longer just outside. It has breached the RV. With no working engine and no weapons, their only option is to escape into the darkness. But out there in the endless woods, is it even worse? The RV shuddered violently as the claw tore through the thin metal ceiling, curling inward like skeletal fingers reaching for prey. A sickening screech filled the air, a sound of metal bending, breaking, being consumed. Ava let out a strangled scream. It's eating the RV. Nick grabbed Emma's arm, dragging her toward the emergency exit. We have to go now. Jordan pressed himself against the door. We run into the woods? Are you insane? A deep, resonating growl reverberated through the cabin, rattling their bones. The thing on the roof wasn't just destroying the RV, it was absorbing it. The twisted, rusted talons sank deeper, fusing with the vehicle, reshaping it into something monstrous. Emma's voice wavered. It's not just hunting us, it's turning the RV into part of itself. Leo swore under his breath. It's growing. The ceiling gave a deafening crack as a massive, jagged head forced its way through the opening. Emma froze. Oh my God! Its face was a warped fusion of rusted metal and bone, its eyes glowing with an eerie, molten light. Gears churned within its throat as it let out a hollow, mechanical snarl. The beast didn't just hunt. It assimilated. Ava clutched Nick's arm. If it gets us, it won't just kill us, it'll make us part of it. Jordan, finally shaking free of his terror, yanked open the emergency door. Then we don't give it the chance. Move. The group plunged into the darkness, feet pounding against damp earth as they sprinted toward the trees. Behind them, the RV groaned, not just collapsing but shifting. The metal twisted unnaturally, the vehicle reshaping into something more organic, more alive. Leo risked a glance back. The RV was no longer just a machine. It was part of the creature now. Emma tripped over a root, catching herself just in time. It's going to come after us. Ava gasped. Where do we go? This road led nowhere. Nick turned sharply, gripping her wrist. Then we don't take the road. We go deeper. Jordan stared at him. Into the trees. That's where it's waiting. Nick's jaw clenched. It's either that or let it catch us out in the open. A heavy, rhythmic thudding shook the ground, footsteps. Massive, pounding footsteps. The thing was moving, dragging its grotesque new body toward them. As they ran, the air around them felt heavier, as though something was warping the space itself. The farther they went, the more unnatural the trees looked, twisted, metallic veins running through the bark. Emma wheezed, slowing down. Guys, I don't think this is a forest anymore. Leo skidded to a stop. What do you mean? She pointed. The trees weren't just trees. They were husks of old vehicles, fused together, their metal skeletons tangled like roots. Ava backed away. This thing doesn't just hunt. It grows. It turns everything into more of itself. Jordan cursed. So what, this whole place is part of it? We've been inside its trap this whole time. Nick's voice was barely a whisper. We were never meant to leave. They now realized the horrifying truth. The creature doesn't just feed. It transforms everything in its path. And they're already deep inside its territory. The night air was thick with the acrid scent of burning metal, the earth trembling beneath their feet as the monstrosity behind them moved. Nick barely had time to process what he'd just seen. The RV, their only chance at survival, had become part of the creature. The road, the trees, the entire landscape, it was all part of its hunting ground. Run! Ava shrieked, shoving Jordan forward. The ground heaved, throwing them off balance. From the depths of the metallic forest, a grotesque appendage slammed down, a fusion of rusted steel and pulsing sinew, crushing a nearby tree with a sickening crunch. It's cutting off our escape, Emma cried. Nick forced himself to move, dragging Emma with him as they sprinted toward a clearing up ahead. Behind them, the beast let out a deafening metallic screech, its massive form shifting, reshaping, adapting. Leo skidded to a halt, eyes darting to their surroundings. We can't outrun it. We have to fight it. Jordan's breath was ragged. With what? Our good looks? Nick grabbed the road flares from his backpack. No, with fire. The beast was made of metal and organic matter, its grotesque body a living scrapyard of twisted metal. And if there was one thing metal feared, it was heat. Emma's eyes widened. You want to burn it? Nick didn't answer. He just lit the first flare and hurled it toward the creature. The flare landed against the beast's lower limbs, igniting the oil-slicked, rusted tissue with a burst of light. The monster reared back, letting out an inhuman wail, its glowing eyes narrowing in fury. Ava didn't hesitate. She grabbed another flare and threw it directly at the beast's head. Boom! The explosion sent a ripple through its body, the flames licking up its grotesque frame, melting metal and flesh alike. Leo yanked open his bag. Gasoline, help me coat the trees. Emma and Jordan worked quickly, splashing fuel onto the ground and surrounding foliage. Nick grabbed the last flare. If this thing wants to consume everything, let's give it something it can't handle. He struck the flare against his boot and dropped it. Flames roared to life, catching the dry branches and creeping along the metallic forest. The beast screeched, its body twisting, convulsing, trying to retreat from the fire. Its limbs buckled as the heat intensified, metal groaning and snapping apart. Keep moving. Don't stop, Nick yelled. The group charged forward, dodging falling debris as the fire consumed the landscape. The monster writhed, letting out one final, monstrous howl before collapsing into the inferno. The flames burned for what felt like hours, until all that remained was a smoldering ruin of twisted metal and scorched earth. Nick and the others stood at the edge of the destruction, gasping for breath. Emma wiped the soot from her face. Did we kill it? Leo's jaw clenched. I don't think something like that can die. But we stopped it. Ava turned toward the road. Then let's get the hell out of here before it changes its mind. The group didn't look back. The beast is defeated, but not destroyed. They have escaped, but at what cost? What if something else is waiting ahead? The night was eerily quiet now, the once monstrous roars of the beast swallowed by the crackling remains of the fire. The group stumbled forward, their bodies aching, their minds clouded with exhaustion and disbelief. Nick led the way, gripping Emma's hand tightly, as if she might disappear into the smoke at any second. The trees had stopped shifting. The metal-infested landscape behind them was no longer twisting, no longer alive. But something about the silence felt unnatural. Leo exhaled shakily. Do you think it's really gone? Ava wiped soot from her face, glancing back at the burning remains of the beast. Gone? Maybe. But dead? I doubt it. Jordan kicked at a patch of scorched dirt. Yeah, well, we gave it something to chew on. I don't think it'll be hunting again anytime soon. But none of them looked convinced. As they continued forward, the dense forest gradually thinned, and the dirt beneath their feet turned to pavement. The road was back. Emma gasped. Wait, this is the main road. This is where we started. Nick squinted into the distance. Headlights glowed faintly on the horizon. A car. Civilization. They had made it. Leo ran ahead, waving frantically at the approaching vehicle. It slowed, pulling up beside them, the driver, a tired-looking trucker, rolling down his window. You folks okay? What the hell are you doing out here? Ain't nothing but old ghost stories on this stretch. Nick exchanged uneasy glances with the others. We broke down. Got lost. The trucker frowned. There ain't no backroads around here. Just this one highway, and it don't lead anywhere except straight out of town. Ava's breath hitched. That's not possible. She turned back toward the forest. There was no other road. No remains of the RV. No sign of the fire. Nothing. Emma swallowed hard. Did we imagine it? Jordan laughed, but it was hollow. Yeah, sure. We all had the exact same near-death hallucination. Leo turned to the trucker. Has anyone ever disappeared out here? The driver scratched his beard. There's stories. Folks claim to hear things in the trees. Some even say they see lights flickering way out past the pines, like old headlights stuck in time. But no one's ever found proof of anything. Just tales. Ava shivered. What if that's because no one's ever made it back before? Nick clenched his jaw. We did. But at what cost? They climbed into the truck, their bodies aching, their minds desperate for rest. As they pulled onto the highway, Nick kept his gaze locked on the forest. Just before it disappeared from view, he saw something in the distance. A single, rusted shape standing just at the edge of the trees. Tall, twisted, watching. Then it was gone. He let out a slow breath, forcing himself to look away. But deep down he knew. The beast wasn't dead. It never would be. It was waiting for the next traveler to take the wrong turn. Story number 2. The engine of the RV hummed steadily as the road stretched out before them, a long ribbon of asphalt cutting through the desert. The sun had set hours ago, leaving only the headlights to carve through the creeping darkness. "This shortcut is supposed to save us at least 2 hours," Jake, the driver, announced, tapping the GPS screen, which flickered uncertainly before freezing completely. Or at least, it was supposed to. Mia, sitting in the passenger seat, frowned as she glanced at the dark road ahead. The air outside seemed unnaturally still, as if the world beyond their headlights had stopped moving. Even the stars looked dimmer here. "You sure this road is legit?" Ethan, sitting in the back, asked. "We haven't passed another car in over an hour." "Maybe it's just not a popular route," Lisa chimed in, her voice lacking conviction. She pulled her hoodie tighter around her. "But yeah, it does feel kind of weird." A silence settled over the group. No one wanted to admit it, but something about Route 666 felt wrong. It had been a last-minute decision to take this shortcut. They were on a cross-country road trip, hoping to reach their next stop by morning. The alternative route had been congested with traffic, and when Jake found a lesser-known highway on the map, it had seemed like a smart idea. But now, as the road stretched on without a single sign of civilization, doubt crept into their minds. "Hey," Mia suddenly pointed ahead, "there's a gas station." Sure enough, a lone gas station appeared in the distance, its neon sign flickering weakly. The building looked old, too old. The rusted pumps stood like forgotten relics, and the windows were coated in a layer of dust. A single light above the entrance buzzed and flickered, barely illuminating the open sign. "We should stop," Jake said. "Just in case." "No way," Ethan scoffed. "That place looks like something straight out of a horror movie." "We need to make sure we have enough gas," Mia insisted. "What if this road stretches on for miles?" Reluctantly, Jake pulled into the station, the tires crunching against gravel. He killed the engine, and for the first time, true silence fell around them. No crickets, no wind, just the faint buzzing of the flickering light. "I'll check inside," Jake said, stepping out. As soon as the door shut behind him, a cold chill swept through the RV. Lisa shivered. Did anyone else feel that? Ethan leaned closer to the window, his breath fogging up the glass. "Guys, there's someone standing out there." Mia turned sharply. "What?" Ethan pointed toward the far end of the gas station near the edge of the road. Standing in the shadows, just barely out of reach of the light, was a tall, thin figure. They weren't moving. They were just watching. Mia's stomach twisted. "Do you think they work here? Then why aren't they moving?" Lisa whispered. Before anyone could say anything else, the RV's radio suddenly crackled to life. A burst of static followed by a garbled voice. "Don't stop." The voice was faint, almost lost in the static. Then, just as quickly as it started, the radio went dead again. A sharp knock on the RV's door made them all jump. It was Jake. He climbed back in, his face pale. "There's nobody inside. It's abandoned." Silence. Lisa swallowed hard. Then who turned on the sign? Nobody had an answer. And when Ethan dared to glance back toward the figure standing at the edge of the road, it was gone. "Let's just get out of here," Mia said, her voice barely above a whisper. Jake didn't argue. He started the engine, and the RV rumbled to life, headlights flooding the empty station with light. For a split second, as the beams passed over the road, Mia swore she saw movement, a shadow darting just beyond their reach. But before she could say anything, the RV was already rolling back onto Route 666. The eerie silence settled back in as they drove. The road stretched endlessly ahead, flanked by nothing but darkness and the occasional dead tree standing like a skeletal warning. Lisa hugged her knees on the couch. "Okay, I can't be the only one thinking this, but something is seriously wrong with this place." "Yeah," Ethan muttered, staring out the window, "like how the gas station looked like it was stuck in the 60s. Or how the radio turned on by itself," Mia added. Jake tightened his grip on the wheel. "We're just creeped out, that's all. It's just an empty road." Thud. Something slammed against the side of the RV. The entire vehicle lurched to the right, sending Mia and Lisa tumbling from their seats. "What the hell was that?" Ethan shouted. Jake swerved, nearly losing control, but managed to steady the RV before pulling over. Heart hammering, he killed the engine. For a moment, nobody moved. The only sound was their heavy breathing. "Did we hit something?" Lisa whispered. "Impossible," Jake said. The road was clear. Ethan, already grabbing a flashlight, hesitated before reaching for the door handle. "Okay, I'll check. Jake grabbed his arm. Are you crazy? Ethan shook him off. If we hit something, we need to know. Sitting in here like scared kids isn't gonna help. Before anyone could stop him, Ethan stepped outside. The night air was unnaturally cold, and the silence pressed down on him. Ethan's breath curled into the air as he shined the flashlight along the side of the RV. Nothing. No dents. No scratches. No blood. Just the vast emptiness of Route 666 stretching in both directions. Then he saw it. Just past the RV, standing in the middle of the road, was a man. Or at least, something shaped like a man. He was tall, unnaturally thin, with skin stretched too tight over his bones. His face was blurred, as if the darkness itself was keeping it hidden. Ethan's stomach turned ice cold. The figure raised one hand and pointed directly at him. Ethan stumbled backward, nearly dropping the flashlight. Guys, he whispered, voice shaking. There's someone. Then the headlights flickered. For just a split second, the man was standing right in front of him, too close, impossibly fast. Ethan screamed. Mia and Lisa saw it first, Ethan falling backward, scrambling toward the RV, his face twisted in horror. Jake threw the door open and yanked him inside, slamming it shut just as the RV's lights completely cut out. For a long, terrifying moment, they sat in complete darkness. Ethan, Mia whispered. What did you see? Ethan was shaking uncontrollably, his breath ragged. He was right in front of me, he stammered. But I never saw him move. He just appeared. Lisa covered her mouth, terror flooding her eyes. And then, the radio crackled to life again. A voice, distorted, inhuman, stretched like a whisper from another world, slithered through the speakers. We shouldn't be here. The radio hissed with static, the distorted voice crackling in and out. You shouldn't be here. Jake's hands were clenched so tight around the steering wheel that his knuckles had turned white. Mia's voice trembled. Turn it off. Jake twisted the dial, but the radio wouldn't shut off. The voice continued, though it was hard to tell if it was one person whispering or dozens speaking at once. Turn back before it's too late. Then silence. A deep, unsettling quiet filled the RV. Nobody spoke. Nobody breathed. Then Lisa let out a sharp gasp, pointing to the windshield. The road. Jake's eyes snapped forward. His stomach plummeted. The headlights illuminated a massive wooden sign, standing right in the middle of the road. Welcome to Route 666. The RV screeched to a halt just inches from the sign. Ethan clutched his head. No. That can't be right. We've been driving for hours. We should be miles past this place. Lisa's voice cracked. We're back where we started. A creeping sense of dread settled over them. Mia reached for her phone, but the screen was frozen on 3:06 a.m., the same time it had been since they left the gas station. We're stuck, she whispered. Jake ran a shaking hand through his hair. Okay. We need to stay calm. We turn around. We drive back the way we came. Mia swallowed. And if we just end up back here again? No one answered. Jake threw the RV into reverse. The tires screeched as they spun back the way they had come. The road stretched endlessly behind them, mile after mile of cracked pavement and skeletal trees. Minutes passed, then hours, but the road never changed. Lisa looked sick. How long have we been driving? Mia glanced at her phone. 3:06 a.m. It's not moving, she whispered. Then, in the distance, headlights appeared behind them. Finally, Jake nearly laughed. Someone else is on this road, but the headlights were too bright, too blinding, and they were coming fast. Jake's stomach twisted. That guy is speeding. The others turned, watching as the lights gained on them at an impossible speed. Ethan's breath hitched. That's not a normal car, man. The lights grew bigger, brighter. The RV was now completely bathed in blinding white light. And then, honk! A massive black truck came out of nowhere, slamming into the back of the RV. The entire vehicle lurched forward, the impact nearly sending them off the road. What the hell? Jake screamed, gripping the wheel as the RV skidded. Mia turned, her face drained of color. Through the blinding headlights, she saw the driver. A man with hollow eyes and a stitched-shut mouth. His hands weren't on the wheel, and yet, the truck was still chasing them. Lisa shrieked. Faster, Jake! Jake floored the gas pedal, the RV roaring as it pushed its limits. The truck behind them kept coming closer and closer. The sound of its horn blared unnaturally loud, echoing in their skulls. Then, just as the truck was about to slam into them again, it vanished. The blinding headlights disappeared instantly, swallowed by the darkness. The RV was speeding down an empty road once more. Ethan was shaking. Tell me that just happened. Tell me I didn't imagine that. Nobody answered, because they all saw it. Jake slowed the RV, his face pale with fear. We need to get off this road. Now. But before he could finish his sentence, the radio crackled again. A new voice, deeper and more menacing, whispered through the static. You can't leave. The road wants you now. The voice on the radio faded into static, but its final words still lingered in the air. The road wants you now. Jake's pulse pounded in his ears. His fingers felt numb against the steering wheel. Lisa was curled up in the corner of the RV, arms wrapped around herself, whispering a prayer under her breath. Mia's hands trembled as she stared at the dashboard. The gas meter hadn't moved. They had been driving for hours, but the tank was still exactly where it was before. What does that mean? Ethan's voice was hoarse. The road wants us? I don't know, Jake muttered. But I'm not waiting to find out. He slammed the RV into high gear, determined to find any way off this cursed stretch of highway. But then, fog. A thick, unnatural fog rolled onto the road, swallowing the asphalt inch by inch. It was so dense that even the high beams barely cut through it. Mia gripped Jake's arm. I don't like this. What if we're driving straight into a trap? We don't have a choice, Jake said through gritted teeth. We can't just sit here. As the RV crept forward, the fog swirled unnaturally, almost like it was alive. Then something moved within it. A shape. No, multiple shapes. Mia's breath hitched. Jake stopped the RV. Jake's foot slammed the brakes. The RV skidded slightly, tires screeching against the cracked pavement. And then, the fog parted just enough to reveal the figures standing in the middle of the road. Dozens of them. Men, women, children. All standing perfectly still, their faces obscured by shadows. Ethan whispered, Are they real? Lisa let out a quiet sob. They're not moving. And then one of them did. A man stepped forward, his face half-burned, his hollow eyes locked onto them. He raised one hand and pointed directly at the RV. Then, in perfect unison, all the figures took a step closer. A deep humming sound filled the RV, rattling the windows. The figures outside moved without sound, their bare feet dragging along the road. Lisa's voice cracked. What do we do? We can't just sit here, Ethan muttered, eyes darting to the doors and windows. They're getting closer. Mia suddenly gasped. Oh my God, look at their clothes. Ethan turned his head and felt his stomach drop. The figures outside wore clothing from different time periods. Some were in old-fashioned suits, others in dusty, tattered dresses. One little girl in a blue nightgown clutched a stuffed rabbit, its fur nearly rotted away. Lisa shook her head, eyes wide with horror. They're the ones who never escaped. Jake snapped out of his daze and threw the RV into reverse. The engine roared, but the RV wouldn't move. It was stuck, like the wheels were sinking into the pavement. No, no, no. Jake slammed the gas pedal, but the RV refused to budge. The figures were only a few feet away now. Their mouths began to open, but instead of voices, a low, rumbling static poured out, like the sound of a dead radio station. Ethan covered his ears. Make it stop! Lisa was sobbing. Mia was muttering to herself. Jake's hands were shaking on the wheel. Then, bang! Something slammed against the back of the RV. Jake twisted in his seat, and his blood turned to ice. The black truck had returned. The phantom driver sat behind the wheel, his stitched mouth twisting into something that almost resembled a grin. The truck's engine growled, and then it charged forward. It's gonna ram us. Mia screamed. Jake had no choice. He slammed the gear into drive and floored the gas pedal. The RV lurched forward, barely missing the approaching figures as it barreled through the fog. For a terrifying moment, everything was nothing but blinding white. Then, just as quickly as it had come, the fog vanished, and so did the figures. Lisa sobbed into her hands. Ethan collapsed back into his seat, gasping for air. Mia was shaking. What the hell was that? Jake didn't answer. He was too focused on the road ahead, because something was wrong. The highway was changing. The asphalt beneath them had cracks now, as if the road itself was decaying. The yellow lines in the center were faded and broken. And up ahead, a faded, rusted road sign came into view. Jake's stomach dropped as he read the words. Welcome to Route 666. Ethan's voice was barely a whisper. No, not again. They were back where they started, and this time there was no way out. A heavy silence filled the RV. Jake gripped the steering wheel so tight his knuckles had turned white. His heartbeat pounded in his ears. Lisa was still sobbing quietly, curled up against the couch. Mia stared blankly at the rusted road sign outside. Ethan sat motionless, hands trembling in his lap. "We're back," he whispered. "We're back where we started." The neon glow of the abandoned gas station flickered in the distance, exactly where they had first seen it. The cracked pavement of Route 666 stretched endlessly ahead. No matter how far they drove, they couldn't leave. "We're trapped," Lisa whimpered. Mia squeezed her eyes shut, trying to control her breathing. "No, there has to be a way out. There's always a way out." Jake let out a shaky breath. "We just have to think. There has to be a reason we keep coming back." Ethan scoffed. "You want to think? How about this? The road won't let us leave. It's playing with us." He gestured wildly to the worn-out highway, the gas station, the fog creeping in again. "We are inside something bigger than us, and I don't think we're supposed to make it out alive." A sharp bang rattled the RV. Mia's breath hitched. "What was that?" It came from the roof. Lisa's eyes widened in terror. "Oh my God, something's on top of us." Jake's hands trembled as he reached for the ignition, turning the key. Click. The engine wouldn't start. Click, click, click. "Come on, come on." Jake slammed his fist against the dashboard. The roof creaked. Whatever was up there was moving. Then Mia heard it, a slow, dragging sound, like something scraping its nails along the metal roof. Lisa was shaking violently. "Please, please, let's go." Thud. Something heavy dropped onto the hood of the RV. Everyone screamed. Jake's foot slammed the gas pedal instinctively, but the engine still refused to start. Ethan's breath came in short gasps. What is it?" Mia forced herself to look. Through the windshield, she saw it. A man, or what was left of one. His body was gaunt and twisted, his skin blackened and cracked, like he had been burned alive. His hollow eyes locked onto Mia's, and a sickening grin spread across his charred face. Then, he slammed his hand against the windshield. The glass spiderwebbed from the impact. Lisa let out a blood-curdling scream. "Jake, start the damn RV." Ethan shouted. Jake twisted the key again. The engine roared to life. Mia barely had time to scream, "Drive," before Jake slammed on the gas. The RV lurched forward, sending the burned man rolling off the hood. As they sped down Route 666, Mia caught one last glimpse of him rising to his feet and laughing. The sound echoed inside her skull. The RV hurtled down the highway at full speed. "We need a plan," Mia said, trying to steady her voice. "There is no plan." Ethan snapped. "Did you not just see that thing? This road is a death trap. There has to be a pattern," Jake muttered. "A reason why we're stuck." Lisa suddenly gasped. "Wait, the old man." Jake glanced at her through the rearview mirror. "What old man?" "The one at the gas station. Remember? He was trying to say something to you, but you left before he could finish." Mia's stomach sank. "You think he knows how to get out?" Lisa nodded frantically. "We have to go back." Ethan's eyes widened. "Are you crazy? Did you not see what just happened?" Lisa's voice rose in panic. "We don't have a choice." Jake clenched his jaw. He hated the idea. Every instinct told him to keep driving and never look back. But they had already driven in circles for hours. If this was their only chance. "Fine," he muttered, making a sharp U-turn. As the RV spun around, the road sign seemed to shift, as if the entire highway was warping. And then, in the distance, the gas station lights flickered back to life. The old man was standing at the entrance, waiting for them. Jake parked the RV and stepped out cautiously. The air smelled like burned rubber and gasoline. The old man's face was gaunt, his eyes sunken and hollow. "You came back," he rasped. Jake swallowed hard. "We need help." The old man nodded slowly. "You shouldn't have taken this road." "We figured that out," Ethan muttered. The old man's gaze darkened. "Route 666 doesn't take you anywhere. It keeps you, feeds off you. Once you're on this road, you belong to it." Lisa's breath hitched. "Then how do we leave?" The old man exhaled sharply. "You have to leave something behind." Mia frowned. "What does that mean?" The old man stepped forward, his voice low and urgent. "This road doesn't let you go unless it takes something in return. That's why it keeps you looping, waiting for its price to be paid." Ethan's voice shook. What kind of price?" The old man's eyes glistened. "A life." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Mia felt her stomach drop. "No," Lisa whispered. "There has to be another way." The old man shook his head slowly. "You either leave someone behind, or you all stay forever." A long, haunting silence filled the gas station. For the first time, Jake, Mia, Ethan, and Lisa looked at each other differently. as if they were all thinking the same terrible thought. Someone had to die, or they would all be trapped here, forever. A suffocating silence filled the RV. The old man's words hung in the air like a curse. You either leave someone behind, or you all stay forever. Jake's throat was dry. Mia's hands felt cold. Lisa shook her head frantically, whispering, "No, no, no, no. We're not doing this." Ethan's voice was hoarse. "There has to be another way." The old man sighed. "Many have tried. None have succeeded." Lisa was sobbing. "This can't be real. It's just a road. It's just a stupid road." Mia turned to the old man. "What happens if we try to leave without paying?" The old man's eyes darkened. "Then the road will take what it wants." A cold dread settled over them. They had two choices: sacrifice one of their own, or risk all of them being taken. Jake's jaw clenched. "We're not killing anyone." Ethan exhaled shakily. "Then what do we do?" The old man hesitated. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, "There may be one other way." Mia's eyes snapped to him. "Tell us." The old man glanced around the empty highway, as if making sure no one, or nothing, was listening. Then he leaned in and whispered, "You have to trick the road." They piled back into the RV, their minds racing. Jake gripped the steering wheel, staring at the endless road ahead. "All right, let's go over this again." Mia took a deep breath. "The old man said the road wants a soul, but it doesn't have to be one of us." Ethan frowned. "Yeah, and where exactly are we getting another soul?" Lisa wiped her tear-streaked face. "We have to give it something else. Something that makes it think it got what it wanted." Mia's hands tightened into fists. "A body. We need a body." A terrible silence filled the RV. Then, slowly, they all turned to look at the burned man lying in the road behind them. His charred, twisted form was still smoldering, his face frozen in that horrific grin. Ethan's voice was barely above a whisper. "You're not saying." "We don't have a choice," Mia said. "If we can make the road take him instead of us, we might have a shot." Jake exhaled. "All right, let's do it." The RV screeched to a halt next to the burned man's body. Jake and Ethan stepped outside, the night unnaturally silent around them. Ethan hesitated. "What if he?" "Don't think about it," Jake muttered. "Just help me." They grabbed the body, the heat still radiating off his flesh, and dragged it to the center of Route 666. Mia and Lisa stood in the RV doorway, watching with bated breath. Jake and Ethan placed the body down, then slowly backed away. Mia's pulse hammered. "Now what?" Lisa's voice shook. "Now we wait." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, the ground trembled. The asphalt beneath the burned corpse began to crack apart, as if the road itself was opening up. A low growl echoed from beneath the surface. The body twitched. Ethan stepped back. "Oh, hell no." The burned man's head snapped upward. His eyes locked onto them, and then he screamed. It was a horrific, guttural sound, filled with rage and agony. Dark, black tendrils shot up from the cracks, wrapping around his body, dragging him down into the asphalt. The road was eating him. The man clawed at the pavement, his stitched mouth ripping open as he howled. Then, with one final sickening crunch, he was gone. The road sealed shut. And then, the sky began to change. Mia's breath came in short, sharp gasps. Did it work? The air felt lighter. The fog was gone. The road ahead was different. Lisa checked her phone. Her screen was working again. The time finally moved forward. Jake slammed the gas pedal. The RV roared down the highway, the neon glow of the Route 666 sign fading behind them. Mia's chest tightened as she watched it disappear. They were finally leaving. Ethan let out a disbelieving laugh. "Holy shit, we did it." Lisa sobbed into her hands. The sky turned a deep shade of blue, the first hints of dawn breaking in the distance. They had won. They had. Bang. A loud thud shook the RV. Mia's stomach dropped. Slowly, she turned toward the back of the vehicle, toward the small mirror hanging above the sink. Her heart stopped. There, in the reflection, a burned, grinning face stared back at her. You can't cheat the road. The lights in the RV flickered. The engine stalled. And then, everything went dark. Story number 3. The last rays of the sun bled into the treetops as the RV rumbled down a narrow dirt road, swallowed by the thickening forest. The GPS flickered, struggling to maintain a signal, before giving up entirely. Ryan sighed, tapping at the dead screen. Great. No service. Again. Jess rolled her eyes from the passenger seat. We're not lost. It's a straight shot. The guy at the last gas station said this road leads right to a hidden campsite. Mark leaned between them, smirking. Oh yeah, that guy totally looked trustworthy. Missing teeth? Check. Weird grin? Check. Classic horror movie setup? Check. Olivia, sitting in the back, bit her lip. Didn't it feel like he was almost warning us? Noah, the most rational of the group, adjusted his glasses. Or he was just messing with some out-of-towners looking for a cheap thrill. Either way, we're almost there. The RV rattled as the dirt road twisted, trees growing taller, their limbs stretching overhead like skeletal fingers. Then, without warning, the forest opened up to a clearing. A perfect campsite. Ryan slowed the RV to a stop, the headlights illuminating a pristine fire pit, wooden benches arranged neatly around it, and a still, glassy lake just beyond the trees. Mark let out a low whistle. Damn, it's like something out of a travel brochure. Jess hopped out first, stretching her arms. See? I told you. A hidden gem. Olivia hesitated at the door, scanning the area. There's something weird about this place. It's too perfect. Ryan chuckled. Liv, you say that about everywhere we go. No, she's got a point, Noah murmured, frowning. How's there no sign of other campers? No tire tracks, no footprints? It's like it's been waiting for us. A cold breeze swept through the clearing, rustling the leaves. Olivia shivered. Waiting for them. As they set up camp, small things began to feel off. Mark unpacked the cooler, frowning. Hey, didn't we bring more beer? Ryan shrugged. Probably left some in the RV. Later, Olivia noticed something strange at the fire pit. The logs looked freshly burned, but the ashes were ice cold. She brushed a hand through them, a shiver crawling up her spine. Noah returned from gathering wood, dropping his bundle. Weirdest thing, I found a backpack out by the trees. Looked old, but like someone just left it there. Ryan snorted. Any cash in it? Noah ignored him, pulling out a folded piece of paper. He skimmed it before his face darkened. Olivia leaned closer. What does it say? He turned the paper so they could see the frantic, scribbled writing. Don't stay past midnight. The wind picked up, whistling through the trees. The sun dipped below the horizon, and the shadows grew longer. Jess laughed, breaking the tension. All right, real funny, guys. Let me guess. One of you planted that to freak us out. Ryan smirked. Nice try, but I wish I'd thought of it. But Olivia wasn't laughing. We should go. Mark groaned. Not this again. A snap echoed from the tree line. They all froze. Something was out there, watching, waiting. The group has arrived at a campsite that shouldn't exist. The warning note hints at something sinister, and something unseen is already watching them. The sun had fully disappeared behind the treetops, plunging the campsite into an unsettling twilight. The fire pit crackled softly, sending flickering shadows across the wooden benches and casting eerie shapes onto the surrounding trees. The lake beyond the clearing was unnaturally still, reflecting the growing darkness like a glassy void. Olivia hugged her arms to her chest, her eyes darting toward the tree line. Does it feel too quiet to anyone else? Noah, stirring the fire with a stick, nodded. Yeah, no crickets, no owls, no wind even. It's just silent. Jess scoffed. It's nature. Enjoy the peace and quiet. Mark cracked open another beer. Or maybe, just maybe, it's the part in the horror movie where we start hearing whispers and dying one by one. Ryan shot him a look. Dude, not funny. Mark shrugged. Come on, lighten up. This place is great. We have the whole campsite to ourselves. A loud thump echoed from the darkness beyond the trees. The group tensed. Ryan stood up, scanning the tree-line. What the hell was that? Ava swallowed hard, her grip tightening around her jacket. It sounded close. Noah flicked on a flashlight, its beam cutting through the thick shadows. The trees stood motionless, their gnarled trunks and tangled branches swaying just slightly in the absence of wind. The light reflected off something in the distance, a pair of pale shapes. Eyes? Noah blinked. The shapes vanished. He swallowed hard. Probably a deer. Ryan exhaled, forcing a chuckle. Yeah, probably. But Olivia's stomach twisted. Something wasn't right. As the night deepened, the shadows beyond the firelight thickened. The darkness felt tangible, creeping closer with every flicker of the flames. Jess stoked the fire absent-mindedly. Okay, so what's the plan? We just drink and tell ghost stories. Mark raised a beer. Sounds like a plan to me. Olivia shifted in her seat. I don't think we should stay up too late. That note. Oh, come on. Jess groaned. You really believe that note was anything more than some stupid prank? Olivia hesitated. I don't know, but I have a bad feeling. Ryan put a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Nothing's gonna happen. We'll wake up in the morning, pack up, and laugh about this. But deep down, even he didn't believe his own words. The group sat in tense silence as the fire crackled, the warm glow illuminating their anxious faces. Then, a soft crunch of leaves. Olivia's breath caught. Did you hear that? Noah nodded slowly. Yeah. Jess frowned. Guys, stop trying to scare me. A twig snapped. This time it was closer. Ryan's fingers curled into fists. He turned his flashlight toward the sound. The beam wavered as he swept it over the trees. Nothing. Just an endless sea of gnarled branches and thick shadows. Then, just as he was about to turn away, something moved. A dark shape slipped between the trees, vanishing into the night. The fire dimmed slightly, as if responding to the growing unease. Noah's voice was barely a whisper. We're not alone. The fire's glow is their only protection, but the darkness beyond is shifting, watching. Something is out there waiting, and it's getting closer. The fire crackled, its glow stretching feebly against the swallowing darkness. The once inviting warmth of the campsite had turned to an eerie, fragile barrier between them and the unknown. Each flickering shadow seemed to breathe, shifting with an unseen presence lurking just beyond their reach. Olivia's stomach twisted in knots. The snapping twigs, the whispering wind that wasn't there before, they weren't alone. Ryan tightened his grip on the flashlight, scanning the trees again. Who's out there? Silence. Jess forced a laugh, though it trembled. Guys, it's just an animal. Or the wind. Let's not. A low murmuring floated from the trees. Noah's blood ran cold. That's not the wind. The whispering grew louder. Multiple voices, overlapping, hushed, urgent. They were speaking, but the words were garbled, indistinct. Mark stood abruptly. Screw this. We're being messed with. Probably some dumbass kids trying to freak us out. Ryan's jaw tensed. And what if it's not? The whispering stopped. For a moment, the only sound was the uneven breathing of the group. Then, a shriek tore through the night. The fire flickered violently, casting twisted shadows against the trees. Olivia clutched Ryan's arm. We need to go. Now. Noah swallowed hard. Where? The RV's that way. Mark turned, shining his flashlight toward the path they had come from. His breath hitched. The trees had shifted. No. No way, he whispered. Jess's voice cracked. The path was right there. We walked through it an hour ago. But it was gone. The fire dimmed again, embers spitting angrily as a sudden gust of cold air swept through the campsite. Ava whimpered. It's here. Whatever it is, it's here. Ryan turned toward the woods. He could feel it, something unseen pressing against them, watching, waiting. A rustling from the treetops. Not wind. Something climbing. Noah's breath hitched. Look up. They did. And they saw it. A grotesque silhouette perched within the branches, its hollow eyes reflecting the firelight. Watching. It didn't move, but it was grinning. Ryan made the first move. Run! The group bolted, stumbling over roots and scattered rocks as they raced toward where they believed the RV to be. The whispers rose to a deafening chorus, overlapping and crawling beneath their skin. A blur of movement, something was chasing them. Jess tripped, letting out a strangled cry as Ryan yanked her to her feet. The creature leapt from the trees, landing behind them with an unnatural crack. They didn't dare look back. The entity is no longer just watching, it's hunting them. The forest itself is shifting, trapping them in its grasp. Will they make it back to the RV? Or is the nightmare only beginning? The night had twisted into a waking nightmare. The group ran blindly through the darkened forest, their breath ragged, their minds screaming for them to wake up, to escape the impossible. Ryan barely noticed the branches cutting at his arms as he tore through the overgrowth, dragging Jess behind him. The others were close, their frantic footfalls crunching the brittle leaves. But the whispers, they were everywhere now, no longer just at their backs. They were inside their heads. There! Noah gasped, pointing ahead. A break in the trees, open space. The RV had to be close. But as they burst into the clearing, their stomachs dropped. The campsite was exactly as they had left it. The fire still flickered weakly in the pit. Their chairs sat untouched. They hadn't gone anywhere. Jess stumbled forward, shaking her head. No, this isn't possible. We ran for miles. Olivia turned in a slow circle, her face pale. It's keeping us here. Mark cursed under his breath. How? How is it doing this? Ava's voice trembled. Because this place isn't real. It's a loop. We were never meant to leave. A breeze swept through the clearing, carrying a foul, decayed scent. The fire flared suddenly, casting elongated shadows against the trees. And then they saw them. Figures standing just beyond the fire's glow. Dozens of them. Pale, distorted shapes. Faces half-formed, expressions frozen in silent screams. Their bodies flickered, like old film projections burned at the edges. Noah took a slow step back. What the hell are they? One figure shifted forward. A woman, her eyes hollow, her mouth moving soundlessly. The same woman from Noah's dream. Ryan's throat went dry. They're the last people who camped here. The woman raised a trembling hand, pointing at them. Her mouth opened wider. A sound rose from her throat, a guttural, echoing cry. The other spirits moved, their mouths stretching open in sync, their voices overlapping. Run, run, run. The trees groaned, their trunks splitting open like wounds, revealing more distorted figures within. They had been part of the forest all along. Ava let out a strangled sob. We're next. Jess grabbed Ryan's arm. The fire, what if it's the key? We've seen it flicker every time something happens. Maybe it's what's keeping this place trapped in time. Noah nodded. Then we need to destroy it. But before they could move, the ground shook violently. Something massive stirred in the darkness beyond the campsite. A final guardian. A thing that didn't want them to leave. The group now understands the horrific truth. They are reliving the fate of past victims, trapped in an endless cycle. The fire is the key to breaking free, but something monstrous won't let them escape so easily. The ground trembled beneath their feet as the shadows in the trees convulsed, shifting like a living thing. The spirits continued their distorted wailing, their forms flickering in and out of existence. The fire pit, once their source of warmth and comfort, now burned brighter, taller, as if feeding off the terror in the air. Ryan gritted his teeth. We have to put it out, now. Noah fumbled for the water jug, his hands trembling as he splashed it over the flames. The liquid hissed against the wood, but the fire only grew stronger, twisting unnaturally, tongues of flame reaching outward like grasping hands. Ava gasped. It's not just a fire. It's an anchor. It's what's holding this nightmare together. Mark turned to her, breathless. Then we don't put it out, we destroy it. The monstrous presence in the woods lurched forward. The massive shape they had only glimpsed before was now visible in the fire's unnatural glow. A towering figure of shadow and bone, its limbs grotesquely elongated, its face featureless except for two hollow voids where eyes should be. Jess clutched Ryan's arm. That's what's been hunting us. The creature moved, its form shifting, phasing in and out of reality like a broken film reel. It let out a deep, guttural sound that wasn't a growl or a roar but a voice made of many. Stay. The whisper wrapped around them like a suffocating blanket, heavy and absolute. The spirits screamed in defiance, their twisted mouths stretching wider, their warning cries merging into an otherworldly shriek. Ava clamped her hands over her ears. It's trying to make us part of it. Ryan's mind raced. If the fire is its anchor, we need to destroy the whole pit, break the stones, scatter the ashes. Noah grabbed a log and swung hard at the stones surrounding the fire, sending embers flying. The flames writhed, recoiling as if in pain. The creature lurched forward, reacting violently to the disruption. Jess and Mark followed suit, kicking over logs, ripping apart the wooden benches, anything to break the sacred boundary of the cursed campsite. The spirits began to flicker faster, their shapes distorting. The whispers fractured. The entity howled. The fire collapsed inward, shrinking, dying, but not fast enough. The creature lunged. Its elongated arms reached out, too fast, too sudden. Ryan barely pushed Jess out of the way before one of its clawed hands slammed into the ground where she had been standing. The earth split beneath the impact, the very fabric of the space around them warping, twisting, pulling them in. Olivia grabbed Noah, her voice raw. We have to finish it. Ryan saw it then, the final stone, the central keystone of the fire pit. The one thing still holding the structure together. He grabbed a shovel from the supply bag, gripping it with both hands. With all his strength, he swung down. The stone shattered. A sound like tearing reality ripped through the air. The entity's form convulsed violently, its body splitting apart, unraveling into smoke and ash. The spirits let out one final, piercing wail before. Silence. The fire died instantly. The forest stilled. And the group was alone. The nightmare is over, or so they think. The campsite is eerily untouched, the RV now visible through the trees. But what if something followed them back? The silence was deafening. The fire pit was nothing more than scattered embers and broken stone, and the monstrous entity had collapsed into ash, dissolving into the void. The air, thick with smoke and something older, something beyond comprehension, slowly began to clear. Ryan exhaled, his hands shaking. Did we do it? Olivia stepped forward cautiously, her gaze fixed on the blackened remains of the fire pit. It's gone. Jess hugged herself, rubbing at her arms as if trying to erase the phantom chill that still clung to her skin. Then why doesn't it feel like it? Mark scanned the tree line. Because nothing about this place makes sense. We saw that thing die, but we still don't know what it was. And we don't know why it wanted us. Ava's voice was barely above a whisper. I don't think it wanted us. I think it wanted to keep us. Noah pointed toward the clearing. The RV. It's back. Sure enough, the vehicle sat exactly where they'd left it, untouched, as if nothing had ever happened. Jess stumbled toward it, yanking the door open. The interior was pristine, the supplies neatly packed, the bed still unmade from when they'd first arrived. The only thing out of place was the layer of dust covering everything, as if the RV had been sitting there for years. Ryan's pulse quickened. No, we were just in here a few hours ago. How is this possible? Olivia swallowed. Maybe time isn't working right here. Maybe it never did. Ava turned to the others, her expression grim. We need to leave. Now. As they piled into the RV, Mark hesitated, glancing back toward the ruined fire pit. What about the spirits? The ones we saw. Do you think we actually set them free? Noah tightened his grip on the wheel. I don't know, and I don't want to stay and find out. The RV roared to life, the headlights cutting through the thinning mist as they pulled onto the narrow dirt path leading away from the clearing. The air inside was thick with unspoken thoughts, unspoken fears. Then, as they neared the edge of the campsite, Olivia gasped. Stop! Noah slammed on the brakes. What? What is it? She pointed toward the tree-line. There, standing just beyond the reach of the headlights, was a single figure. One of the spirits. Watching. Its mouth moved, but no sound came. Its hollow eyes followed them as the RV slowly rolled forward. Then, just as they reached the bend in the road, the figure lifted its hand. Not in anger, not in warning, but in farewell. Then it vanished. They didn't speak for miles. The road stretched endlessly before them, the trees thinning, giving way to the familiar sight of highway lights in the distance. Civilization. Jess exhaled a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. We made it. Mark let out a nervous laugh. Are we sure? No one answered. They didn't know. Ava leaned against the window, watching the darkened trees pass. Do you think anyone else will find that place? Ryan's grip on the dashboard tightened. I think it finds them. Noah didn't take his eyes off the road. Then let's hope they're smarter than we were. As the RV sped down the highway, the radio crackled to life. Static at first, then something else. A whisper. See you next time. The screen flickered. The GPS recalibrated. And for a single chilling moment, it displayed their exact location. The campsite. Then it was gone.